The Talon Empire did not conquer worlds, they curated them. From the icy spires of Velnor to the crystalline deserts of Kythax, their warships descended like falcons upon a thermals, talons outstretched, not for territory, but for trophies. Gold, art, machines that sang in frequencies only avian ears could parse. They catalogued civilizations by what glittered, dismissing those who clung to softer currencies. Love, memory, the stubborn heat of a heartbeat. When their scouts first pierced Earth's atmosphere, they noted the planet's garish trinkets, skyscrapers, stadiums, the electric scream of Las Vegas, and deemed it ripe for plunder. They missed the rot. They missed the rusted trailers squatting in Florida's fevered swamps, where men named their guns and fed alligators like pets. They overlooked the greasy diners where veterans nursed coffee and grudges, their hands steady as they sketched bombs on napkins. The Talons, with their gilded hierarchies and diamond-edged rituals, failed to calculate the tenacity of creatures who built kingdoms and junkyards, who weaponized barbecue smoke and raccoons and regret. But Earth had always been a paradox. A blue marble swaddled in fragile air, birthing both poets and pyromaniacs. The Talons arrived seeking a museum. They found a graveyard with its teeth still bared. Somewhere between the first shot fired and the last flame guttered, the universe learned a truth older than stars. Humans do not have predators, they become them. Chapter 1. The mosquitoes sang their shrill hymns over the swamp, and Billy Ray McCoy spat into the dirt, watching the brown-stained saliva sink into the mud like a dying planet. His trailer crouched on cinder blocks at the edge of the Everglades, its aluminum siding pockmarked with rust and old bullet holes. A Confederate flag hung limp in the humidity, its edges frayed into whispers. The gators in the moat didn't bother him anymore. They'd grown fat on the raccoons and possums he tossed them, their yellow eyes glinting like pennies in the dark. He called the biggest one Clem, after his father. Billy's mornings were rituals of neglect. He'd wake to the sour tang of last night's bourbon still clotting his throat, crack 2 eggs into a cast-iron skillet scarred by decades of grease, and eat them staring at the peeling NASCAR posters on the wall. Dale Earnhardt glared down at him, frozen mid-turn in 1987, forever young, forever winning. The man hadn't aged a day. Billy had. His mullet was more salt than pepper now, his hands trembling faintly as he lit a Camel off the stove's gas burner. The doctors had said something about nerve damage. He told them to bill the VA and never went back. The sky turned wrong at noon. He was elbow deep in the guts of his '73 Chevy Nova, knuckles bleeding onto the carburetor, when the shadows began to stutter. At first, he thought it was the bourbon, but the birds fell silent mid-cry, and the air thickened like syrup. Then came the sound, a low tectonic hum that made Clem's gators thrash in the moat, their tails slapping water into arcs of liquid silver. Billy wiped his hands on his overalls and squinted upward. They came in ships that shone like knives, sleek, angular things that tore the clouds into confetti, their hulls reflecting the sun in jagged bursts. Billy didn't need the busted TV in his trailer to tell him what they were. He'd seen enough sci-fi flicks at the Starlight Drive-In back when he still took Cheryl on dates, but this wasn't a movie. The first laser strike hit Tampa like God's own cattle prod, splitting the horizon into a jagged crack of purple light. The ground trembled. In the distance, the Orlando skyline pricked the clouds, a cluster of glittering needles that suddenly seemed very small. He didn't pray. Prayer was for men who thought the universe gave a damn. Instead, he dragged his lockbox out from under the bed, the metal screeching against the trailer's linoleum floor. Inside lay his inheritance, .44 Magnum his PA had won in a poker game, 3 kilos of C4 from his contracting days, and a Zippo engraved with Semper Fi that he'd lifted off a dead buddy in Fallujah. The lighter clicked open, closed, a metronome for his racing thoughts. The Talons came at dusk. They descended on wings of polished chromium, their bodies feathered and fused with armor that shimmered like oil on water. Eagle heads swiveled on humanoid frames, eyes like molten gold scanning for shine. Billy watched from his window as they tore through Old Man Henderson's place across the swamp. Henderson's prized '60 Mustang, cherry red, waxed weakly, was ripped from the garage, talons shredding the roof like foil. The aliens trilled to each other, high and keening, as they hauled the car into their ship. Trophy hunters. Of course he almost let them pass, almost, but then one paused, its head cocking toward Billy's trailer, toward the Nova. "Oh hell no," Billy muttered. The 44 barked first, its recoil a familiar punch to his palm. The lead Talon screeched as the bullet sparked off its chest plate. They scattered, wings beating up gusts of dirt and dead leaves. Billy grinned, toothless and wild, until their leader raised a clawed hand. The air split with a crack as a plasma bolt torched his mailbox into slag. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a symphony. Billy moved like he was 25 again, ducking behind the Nova as plasma seared the air. Clem's gators lunged from the moat, jaws snapping at talons. He tossed a block of C4 into their midst, the Zippo's flame kissing the fuse. The explosion painted the swamp in oranges and blacks, feathers raining down like charred snow. A talon lunged at him, beak snapping. He jammed the .44 into its throat and pulled the trigger. The alien crumpled, its death rattle a wet, gurgling. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of cooling plasma. Billy knelt, breath raw, and pried a communicator from the dead talon's belt. The device chimed, projecting a hologram, a map of Florida, glowing red over Orlando. A voice clipped in avian, spat a word that needed no translation: exterminate. In the trailer's cracked mirror, Billy saw the ghost of the man who'd left Cheryl crying at the kitchen table, the man who'd missed his daughter's birth for a poker game, the man who'd chosen engines over people because engines didn't leave. The communicator beeped again. Orlando's glow pulsed like a heartbeat. He opened the lockbox's false bottom. Beneath the ammo and fuse wire lay a faded photo, Cheryl holding baby Emily, both laughing in a pool of sunlight he couldn't remember. Clem the gator bellowed outside, hungry. Billy poured bourbon into his coffee mug, tossed the rest of the bottle into the moat, and watched the flames bloom blue. "Aight, Dale," he said to the poster. "Let's ride." Chapter 2. The Everglades smoldered behind him, a quilt of blackened sawgrass and skeletal cypress trees. Billy Ray's Nova groaned like a dying animal as it lurched down I-75, its trunk stuffed with C4, propane tanks, and a dented cooler full of roadkill jerky. The Talon communicator buzzed on the passenger seat, its holographic map still pulsing over Orlando. He'd wrapped it in duct tape to muffle the alien chirps, but it still sang to him in intervals, a mechanical heartbeat counting down to whatever fresh hell waited ahead. He didn't trust highways, too open, too much sky, but the back roads were clogged with abandoned cars, their doors hanging open like jaws frozen mid-scream. A minivan had veered into a ditch, its bumper sticker, "My child is an honor student at Sunshine Elementary," half melted from plasma burns. Billy kept his eyes forward. The rearview mirror showed only smoke. They found him at a gas station outside Naples. He'd stopped to siphon diesel, the nozzles grit bitter on his tongue, when the Raccoon emerged, small, bandit-faced, one ear chewed ragged. It stared at him from atop a shattered Slurpee machine, paws clutching a pack of peanut M&Ms. Billy nodded at it. The Raccoon chirped, tossed the candy at his boots, and scampered into the shadows. 5 minutes later, the first Talon patrol swooped in. Their wings churned the air into a feverish drone. Billy crouched behind the Nova, .44 in hand, but before he could fire, a propane tank rolled out from beneath a dumpster. The Raccoon, bold little bastard, had nudged it into the open, its claws scrabbling against the asphalt. The lead Talon shrieked, lunging for the tank, talons outstretched. Billy shot it. The spark caught. The explosion peeled the station's roof back like a tin can. Fire rained down in greasy droplets, and the surviving Talons fled, their feathers alight. The Raccoon trotted over to Billy, M&Ms clutched in its jaws, and dropped them into his palm. "Kevin," Billy said, because the name felt right. The Raccoon sneezed. They drove until the Nova's engine whimpered. Kevin slept in the glove box, paws twitching as if dreaming of arson. Orlando was a fever dream on the horizon. The Talons had erected spires of shimmering alloy, where the theme parks once stood. their ships circling like vultures over a kill. Billy parked in the corpse of a Walmart, its parking lot littered with shopping carts and the ashen outlines of bodies. Inside, the shelves were stripped bare, save for a single rack of Florida souvenir t-shirts fluttering in the broken AC. He took one. It smelled like rot and regret. That's where Jesse found him. Billy was rigging a motion sensor from a kid's walkie-talkie when the barrel of a shotgun pressed against his neck. He froze, fingers hovering over the exposed wires. "You're either real brave or real stupid," came a voice like gravel under boots. Billy turned slowly. The man was gaunt, his face a patchwork of scars and sunburn. Prosthetic legs, military grade, hydraulic, hissed as he shifted his weight. A dog tag dangled from his neck. Jesse M. Cole, brave's a stretch, Billy said. Stupid's accurate. Jesse's eyes flicked to the Nova, the C4, Kevin now perched on the roof gnawing a Slim Jim. The shotgun lowered, he pointed to his throat, then his ear, and shook his head. Can't speak, can't hear, but his eyes said plenty. They were the eyes of a man who'd buried too many friends in too much sand. They communicated in gestures and grunts. Jesse's fingers traced a map in the dust. The Talons were herding survivors into the ruins of the Citrus Bowl. Louisa, a nurse, was there. Someone worth saving. Billy nodded. Jesse tossed him a grenade. Welcome to the team. The bowl stank of blood and bleach. Talon drones hovered above the field, their spotlights carving the crowd into panicked slices. Louisa moved among them like a wraith, her scrubs stained brown, a butterfly knife strapped to her thigh. She was stitching a boy's shrapnel wound when Billy and Jesse slithered through a crack in the concourse. "You're either here to help or here to die," she said, not looking up. Her voice was Cuban coffee, dark, bitter, sustaining. "Ain't decided yet," Billy said. She tied off the suture and met his gaze. Her eyes were older than her face. "You're the one they're buzzing about, the gator guy. That a problem? It's a start." They broke out at midnight. Jesse led them through the sewers, his prosthetics whining in the muck. Kevin scouted ahead, his eyes reflecting the dim light like twin dimes. Billy's boots slipped in something unspeakable, but he focused on the photo in his breast pocket. Emily's laugh, frozen in time. "Keep moving." The safe house was a junkyard north of the city, its fences strung with shotgun shells and Christmas lights. Louisa had stockpiled antibiotics and vodka. "For disinfecting," she said, but Billy noticed the empty bottles in the corner. They didn't sleep. Billy taught them to build phosphorus traps from matchheads and lawn fertilizer. Jesse taught them to kill, silent, efficient, a finger drawn across a throat. Kevin taught them to steal, returning each dawn with Talon tech, a plasma cartridge, a cracked helmet, once, gloriously, a grenade belt. The Talons adapted. Their patrols moved in trios now, wings synced to a predatory rhythm. They'd learned to avoid the gator pits, the tripwires, the lure of chrome hubcaps Billy left glittering in the sun, but they still craved fire. Billy realized it during a skirmish at a burning gas station. A Talon hesitated, its beak twitching toward the flames. Entranced, Louisa put a bullet in its skull. "They're addicts," she said. Billy stared at the smoke curling into the sky. "We can work with that." The plan was madness, but madness was the coin of the realm now. They'd bait a Talon warship hovering near Lake Okeechobee. Louisa mixed a cocktail of diesel, moonshine, and powdered jalapeno, her Cajun confusion. Jesse rigged a flamethrower from a garden hose and a propane tank. Kevin, somehow, understood his role. They lit the fumes at dusk. The smoke plume rose thick and greasy, stinging the eyes, a siren song for Talon lungs. The warship descended, its shadow swallowing the junkyard. Talons poured from the belly, their claws scraping concrete, drawn to the inferno like moths. Billy watched from the Nova's roof, a detonator in his hand. Jesse crouched in a sniper's nest of crushed sedans, his rifle steady. Louisa prayed in Spanish under her breath. Kevin, strapped into a makeshift harness, chittered with rage. "Go," Billy said. The Raccoon launched himself into the chaos, a furry little IED. He scrambled up a Talon's leg, claws digging into armor seams, and shoved a flashbang into the alien's beak. The explosion was deafening. Jesse picked off stragglers. Louisa torched the rest. Billy sprinted for the ship's ramp, the detonator's trigger slick in his grip. A Talon lunged, talons raking his ribs. He smelled his own blood, coppery and warm, but Jesse's bullet took it mid-leap. The ship's interior was cold, sterile, humming with a sound that made Billy's teeth ache. He found the engine core, a pulsing blue orb, and planted the C4. The detonator beeped. He was halfway down the ramp when the Talon reinforcements arrived. Jesse stepped into their path. He didn't wave, didn't smile, just raised his rifle and nodded at Billy, a single solemn dip of his chin. Go. The last thing Billy saw before the ramp closed was Jesse's shotgun blazing, his silhouette swallowed by wings and plasma fire. The ship shuddered as it rose. Louisa bandaged Billy's ribs with shaking hands. Kevin gnawed on a Talon claw, his fur matted with alien blood. On the control console, the holographic map flickered. The Talon Emperor's face materialized, a feathered monstrosity crowned with jagged obsidian. He hissed something that translated as, "You will be a trophy." Billy lit a camel, inhaled deep, and blew smoke at the screen. Y'all ever heard of NASCAR? Chapter 3. The warship's air tasted like static, metallic and thin, as if the Talons had scrubbed the oxygen of anything that might remind a person of home. Billy Ray McCoy leaned against the cold bulkhead, his ribs throbbing beneath Louisa's hasty stitches. The bandages smelled of vodka and regret. On the floor, Kevin gnawed a strip of alien wiring, his raccoon eyes narrowed in concentration. The ship hummed around them, a low, predatory purr that made Billy's molars ache. He missed the swamp, missed the gators, missed the way the Florida heat pressed against your lungs like a lover you couldn't shake. Louisa stood at the control console, her fingers dancing over holograms that twisted like smoke. She'd found the Talon's liquor stash, barrels of something clear and viscous that burned hotter than moonshine, and used it to sterilize the wound on her forearm. The scar would be ugly. She didn't seem to care. "Emperor's flagship's 6 hours out," she said. Not turning. Her voice was flat. "A surgeon's blade. They're accelerating. Probably pissed you blew up their toy." Billy grunted. The Nova sat in the hangar below, its hood pried open like a cadaver on an autopsy table. The plasma engine they'd ripped from the warship's core glowed inside it, a stolen star. It was too clean for the car, too perfect. The Nova belonged to a world of grease and grit, of cracked leather seats and beer cans rolling under the pedals. But survival, Billy had learned, was a dance with contradictions. He limped to the viewport. Earth hung below, half-shadowed, her oceans reflecting the Talon Armada's sickly green thrusters. Orlando was a scar now, a jagged line of molten alloy where the citrus bowl once stood. Somewhere in that ruin, Emily might still be breathing, might still remember the father who'd left her to chase ghosts in Fallujah and Daytona. The photo in his pocket felt heavier than the .44 on his hip. "We could run," Louisa said suddenly. Her reflection floated in the glass, fractured by the Talon glyphs etched into the viewport. "Take this ship. Fold space. Never look back. The universe is big. Big enough to hide." Billy studied her. She was younger than he'd first thought. Late 20s, maybe, but her eyes belonged to someone who'd outlived the sun. He wondered what she'd buried in the citrus bowl's ashes. A lover. A child. Some debts didn't need words. "You don't want to run," he said. She smiled. All teeth. "No. But you needed to hear it." The plan unfolded in the hangar, under the Nova's skeletal shadow. Louisa had decrypted the Talon database, her fingers flying through alien code like a pianist through a requiem. The Emperor's obsession with trophies was a religion. He'd raised 100 worlds, each conquest marked by a ceremonial duel, a test of dominance, a theater of supremacy. "He'll want spectacle," Louisa said, pulling up a hologram of a Talon Colosseum. "It stands packed with feathered warriors, something primal, something human." Billy spat on the hangar floor. The plasma engine pulsed in response, casting his shadow, monstrous and elongated, against the walls. So we give him a show. They worked in silence. Billy rewired the Nova's ignition, his hands steady despite the tremor in his left pinky, old nerve damage, or maybe just age. Louisa jury-rigged a comms array, splicing Talon tech with a CB radio scavenged from the junkyard. Kevin smuggled tools, his paws black with engine oil, chittering at them in a language only the desperate understood. At dusk the alert came. The Emperor's flagship pierced the atmosphere like a needle through flesh, its hull bristling with weaponry that made the warship they'd stolen look like a pop gun. A hologram bloomed in the hangar, a feathered titan with eyes like supernova, his beak lined with jagged obsidian teeth. The Emperor's voice was a landslide, each syllable a tectonic shift. You have stolen fire from gods, mammal. Your bones will adorn my throne. Billy lit a camel, the flame trembling only slightly. Y'all ever heard of NASCAR? The Emperor tilted his head, a predator intrigued by prey that bared its throat. The Talons had no word for sport, Louisa had said. Only conquest and tribute. Explain. You got a faster ship. I got a faster car. We race. You win. Earth's yours. I win. Billy sucked smoke deep, let it curl from his nostrils like a dragon's jest. You crawl back to whatever hell spat you out. The hologram flickered. The Emperor's talons flexed, slicing the air. A race? You bargain with games. Nah. Billy grinned. The old feral grin that had made Cheryl call him that damned feral possum in their better days. I'm bargaining with your pride. Silence. Then a sound like mountains colliding. The Emperor's laughter. The human's carcass will make a fine hood ornament. They set the stage at Daytona. The Talons terraformed the speedway overnight, their machines peeling back the asphalt to reveal a track of polished black glass. The grandstands were empty, save for drone cameras that buzzed like wasps. The Emperor's hoverbike gleamed at the starting line, all razor edges and plasma vents, a thing of angles and hunger. The Nova looked small beside it. Billy had painted the hood with primer gray streaks, camouflage for a beast that no longer knew its place. The plasma engine growled, a sound that vibrated in the teeth and the soul. Louisa leaned against the driver's door, her arms crossed. Fuel lines are rigged to blow if you tap the brakes too hard, she said. So don't, comfortin'. She gripped his shoulder, her nails digging into his flesh. Win, or I'll kill you myself. Kevin chittered from the passenger seat, a bandit-faced co-pilot with a stolen Talon medkit strapped to his chest. Billy had tried to leave him behind. The Raccoon had responded by short-circuiting the airlock controls. The Emperor descended in a beam of emerald light, his wings casting a shadow that swallowed the pit crew. He didn't speak, didn't need to. His hoverbike's engine screamed a challenge. Billy slid into the Nova, the leather seat creaking like an old friend. The photo of Emily trembled in his hand. She was 9 in the picture, gap-toothed and sunburned, holding a blue ribbon from a county fair rodeo he hadn't attended. He tucked it into the dash, next to the cracked speedometer. Do her proud, he muttered. The starting light flared. The Nova roared. The first lap was a funeral march. The Emperor's bike sliced through the curves, its plasma wake melting the track's edges. Billy clung to his tail, the Nova's tires spitting glass shards. The drones swooped low, their cameras hungry. Memories flickered. Cheryl's laughter in the starlight drive-in. Jesse's nod before the flames took him. Emily's first steps, wobbling toward a father who wasn't there. The Nova's engine screamed, drowning out the ghosts. On the third lap, the Emperor cheated. Talon drones dive-bombed the track, plasma fire cratering the glass ahead. Billy swerved, the Nova's frame groaning. Kevin hurled a wrench at a drone, his screech lost in the chaos. The hoverbike pulled ahead, its rider's wings spread in triumph. Billy downshifted. The plasma engine howled. He'd learned evasion in Fallujah's alleys, in Daytona's backstreets, in the swamp's labyrinthine channels. He cut the headlights, veered into the smoke from burning tires, and became a ghost. The Nova slid beneath the Emperor's bike, its undercarriage scraping sparks. The final straightaway was a tunnel of fire. The Emperor banked, talons outstretched to shred the Nova's roof, and Billy hit the nitrous. The stolen plasma engine woke. The world blurred. The Nova's hood glowed white-hot. The photo of Emily curling at the edges. The finish line rushed forward, a mirage in the heat haze. The Emperor's shriek echoed through the comms, a sound that would haunt Billy's dreams. He crossed the line by half a hood. The Talon flagship shuddered. The drones froze mid-air. The Emperor's hoverbike careened into the infield, its wings sheared off by the Nova's wake. Billy killed the engine. The silence was a living thing. Kevin pawed at the photo, his whiskers twitching. The edges were charred, but Emily still smiled. Louisa's voice crackled over the radio. "Told you not to tap the brakes." Billy leaned back, his hands welded to the steering wheel. Above, the Talon Armada retreated, their thrusters flickering like dying stars. Somewhere in Orlando, a child might be watching the sky. Somewhere, a father might still have time. Chapter 4. The Talon Armada left Earth the way a storm leaves, slowly, grudgingly, their ships bleeding green light into the stratosphere like venom from a wound. Billy Ray McCoy watched them go from the roof of his trailer, a bottle of warm Budweiser in hand, the aluminum sweating in the dawn humidity. The swamp breathed again, its waters thick with ash and the rusted carcasses of Talon drones. Clem's gators had returned, their bellies full of alien scrap, their eyes glinting with the smug satisfaction of creatures who'd outlived yet another apocalypse. He'd parked the Nova in the moat, its plasma engine still ticking like a disgruntled heartbeat. The hood was warped from the race, the primer peeled back to reveal scars of molten metal. Emily's photo had fused to the dash, her smile now framed by a halo of burnt circuitry. He didn't try to pry it loose. Some things, once seared into the world, belonged there. Louisa found him gutting a Talon drone with a machete, its innards spilling oil that shimmered like iridescent blood. She moved quieter now, her boots caked in the gray mud that had settled over Florida since the invasion. The nurse's scrubs were gone, replaced by a leather jacket stripped from a Talon officer, its feathers stripped off to leave a quilt of scarred hide. "Orlando's still standing," she said. "No hello. No small talk." They'd run out of lies to cushion the truth. Billy wiped his blade on his overalls. The drone's core, a fist-sized crystal, pulsed faintly in his palm. He'd seen similar stones powering the Emperor's bike. "Standin' ain't livin'. Your girl's there." Refugee camp near the old fairgrounds. The machete slipped, nicking his thumb. He sucked the blood away. "Copper and salt. She ain't my girl. Not anymore." Louisa grabbed his wrist, her grip surgeon steady. "You don't get to decide that." They took the Nova. The roads were graveyards. Cars sat abandoned, their doors rusted open, skeletons curled in back seats clutching photo albums and shotguns. Billy drove slow, the Nova's tires crunching over debris that might have been concrete or bone. Kevin rode shotgun, his paws draped over the window ledge, nose twitching at the scent of rot and jasmine, the latter blooming unnervingly bright in the cracks of ruin. They passed a billboard that read "Hell is full, go home" in peeling letters. Someone had spray-painted a Talon corpse beneath it, wings splayed like a macabre exhibit. Louisa said nothing. Billy said less. The fairgrounds stank of hope and desperation, fences made of drone hulls, corralled tents patched with Talon parachute silk. Children chased each other with sticks, their laughter sharp and brittle. A woman played a guitar missing 2 strings, her voice raw as she sang "America the Beautiful" off-key. Billy killed the engine, his hands trembling. Emily found him first. She stood by a water pump, her hair shorn to her scalp, a hunting knife on her belt. 17, but her eyes were Cheryl's. Same steel, same sorrow. She stared at him, a jerrycan frozen mid-pour. "Mom's dead," she said. No greeting, no tears, just a fact, laid bare like a gutted fish. Billy nodded. He'd known, somehow, known from the moment he'd seen the Talon's glass Tampa. Cheryl had never been one to run. Emily stepped closer. Her boots were too big. Stolen from a corpse. Heard you raced aliens. Lost a good raccoon doing it. Kevin chose that moment to leap from the Nova, his fur fluffed in indignation, and scamper up a tent pole. Emily's composure cracked. A flicker of the girl who'd once begged for a pony. That him? Nah, that's Kevin. The good ones. Gone. She studied him, searching for the man who'd missed birthdays and ballet recitals. Billy let her look, let her see the crow's feet, the nicotine stains, the fresh scar on his neck where a Talon's talon had grazed him. Why'd you come? He dug Jesse's dog tags from his pocket, the metal warm from his skin. The ex-Marine's name was worn nearly smooth. Figured you oughta have these. Emily took them, her fingers brushing his. A tremor, a spark. You stayin'? The guitar player began another verse. Somewhere. A baby cried. The sun hung low, painting the fairgrounds in gold and rust. Ain't got nowhere else to be, Billy said. The Talon envoy arrived at dusk. Billy was teaching Emily how to clean a .44. When the shadow fell over the trailer, the ship was smaller than the others. A sleek dagger of black alloy, its hull devoid of trophies. The envoy emerged, a single Talon, unarmed, its wings clipped and bound in silver chains. Around its neck hung a pendant, a hood ornament from the Nova, polished to a mirror sheen. Emily reached for her knife. Billy shook his head. The Talon trilled, its voice softer than the others, and placed the pendant at his feet. The gesture was unmistakable. Tribute. Tell your boss we're square, Billy said. The envoy tilted its head, gold eyes lingering on Emily, then Kevin, then the gators circling hungrily in the moat. It trilled again, a sound almost like laughter, and departed. That night, Billy dreamed of Jesse. They stood in the junkyard, the air thick with the scent of burning oil. Jesse's prosthetic legs were gone, his stride unburdened. He didn't speak, didn't need to. He tossed Billy a wrench, and nodded toward the Nova, its engine glowing like a heart in the dark. Keep building, the dream whispered. Keep living. They buried Cheryl in the swamp, her grave marked by a chunk of Talon hull engraved with a pocket knife. Emily chose the spot, a patch of land where wild orchids bloomed through cracks in the wreckage. Louisa said a prayer in Spanish. Kevin left a Twinkie on the mound. Winter came, thin and frostless. The Nova's plasma engine powered a water pump. The Talon core lit the fairgrounds. Survivors trickled in, drawn by rumors of the mullet-sporting madman who'd outraced an empire. Billy let them stay, so long as they worked, so long as they didn't ask about the war. Emily rebuilt the trailer, reinforcing the walls with drone plating. She hung Jesse's dog tags by the door, next to a new photo, her and Billy, squinting in the sunlight, Kevin mid-leap on their shoulders. On the first anniversary of the retreat, Louisa vanished. She left a note on the Nova's windshield, gone to find more fires to put out. Don't die. A map was tucked beneath it, marked with coordinates in Texas, Mexico, places where Talon remnants still festered. Billy folded the map into his wallet, next to Emily's ribbon. The gators bred. The orchids spread. The orchids spread. The Nova's engine hummed. One evening, as mosquitoes droned and the sky bled orange, Emily asked, "You think they'll come back?" Billy leaned back in his lawn chair, the Talon pendant cold against his chest. The stars winked, indifferent. Maybe. What'll we do? He lit a Camel, the flame steady in his palm. Same as always, darlin'. Survive.